The I guess anyone can jump in and maybe share or comment or ask questions regarding some of the discoveries that we just had. I mean, I don't know if I'll call them discovery, but we don't really think about them. I guess it's mostly the awareness side of it. We feel it though, like some of the things that I've discovered just looking around and trying to understand exactly what it is that diaspora in general face abroad. It's mainly what one of the things that you mentioned earlier, which is they're calling it the strong one syndrome, right? You always have to look strong, always have to be strong, always have to carry on and feel like you can never be defeated. So, and immigrants honestly, it's one of the biggest problems immigrants have here in the United States, right? They always are expected to be the ones that supports all the family and send money home and still take care of the family here and still pay for their own education because eh, somehow your parents did it and they didn't have a car. They had to walk 5 miles to school back and forth and things like that. So it's a tough one. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that what's the best way to combat that, that syndrome of always looking strong and being the strong one.
Well, I think there's different ways, but one thing that we always have to be mindful of, and I know that a lot of those concepts are very foreign to a lot of people that are being that was raised outside the United States, but it's about recognizing how you feel about certain situations, right? Being honest about, hey, you know what? I'm struggling here. Right? I don't need to perform. I don't need to to have that cape all the time. I can take it off and it's okay. I feel really the it's the internal conversation that we have with ourselves every single day. And like you sit there and it's like, okay, I have this problem, but I'll figure it out. Two or three steps down the line, you haven't figured that out yet, but is you have all those resources around you, but you don't even want to raise your hand or even ask for help. And that's one thing that I've noticed for a lot of people in our communities. Like asking for help is a problem, and even our fathers were that way too.
Mm.
I always have to be strong because I can't lose face, but you can't be strong all the time. Right. So I think honesty, like an honest conversation, honesty with yourself to about, and it's also about, as I said earlier, the internal conversation that you have. Right. Why do you feel like you have to be strong all the time? Why do you feel like you can't lose face? Right. Why do
I
you
don't I
feel?
don't even know if it's a feeling. It's more like something that you are imposed upon, right? It's the
Yes,
expectation.
but that's the thing. When it's the expectation are there,
Mm,
right? That's like yeah, you have the expectation. However, you also have your thoughts, you have your feelings, and you have your reactions.
mm.
So how you think about the expectation, how you feel about it, craft the way you respond to them. Right. So it really start with you and your understanding of it. Because me, I went through something similar. There's a lot of things that I was carrying from back home. But when I got here, right, I used them, they were maladaptive. So as soon as I had a problem and I hit a bump, something was happening. So I had to really think about myself and like, okay, what am I doing here? Is this values that I learned, those values that I learned working or not? If they are not working, it doesn't mean that they are bad. It just means that they don't work for this situation. And it's okay to put them aside. Right? Because we are all constantly evolving, constantly changing. So why would you stop your growth where you are just because you want to adapt to a certain value that is literally maladaptive to the environment where you live? So you really have to think about those questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
I mean, in my case, I handled it maybe slightly differently, maybe wrong. You can tell me what you think or tell me, how you assess it.
Mhm.
For me, at some points, I just stopped carrying anything or anybody else's problem. I just refuse to think about it. So I accepted that that people may look at me and say, hey, this guy doesn't help people, doesn't care about people. But deep down, I just decided that I wasn't going to care anymore. I was going to worry about one thing at a time. And if I'm considered a failure because of such and such other things, then I'm okay with it.
Hmm.
That's how I dealt with it.
I think that's what you're describing is boundary setting. I have to set boundaries for to protect my own mental health and to protect myself as well. Because if people have access to you 24/7, right, and then you always have to care about what other people are doing or how the people are living, your life is just you're just going to be miserable. I'm not saying that you have to be selfish. I'm not saying that you have to turn against or away from the people, your people. No. What I'm saying is you have to understand what line that doesn't need to be crossed, or to what level am I going to stop. So once you understand that and you see that for yourself, then yes, now you can make those decisions. But if you don't have those internal conversations, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that.
Nice. Someone has raised questions. Someone has raised their hand. Jonathan.
Yes, yes. I wanted to first of all say thank you so much. I believe you always well spoken. I've watched few of your podcasts, and it's always a pleasure, Eve, to listen to you and to learn new stuff.
Thanks.
You're a commander. I personally could relate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what should I talk about first, but let's talk about the immigrants and then probably men. But
Okay.
let's start with immigrants. I just say it so I won't forget. For immigrants, although we are all immigrants, we cannot deny the fact that, for instance, we all have different situations. Some people live by themselves, some people live with their family, some even families, besides close families, they have uncles, cousins. So we are still not on the same path. Some
Mm-hmm.
have the papers right, are citizens, some have green card, some, are scared to be deported. So although everybody can be immigrants, there are certain things in which I believe personally we cannot relate.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who some people have their parents back home who's who were able to pay for the studies. Some didn't have that. They had to go to other routes to find some avenues to find themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There is that aspect, and yeah, I feel in my journey sometimes certain things I go through uh related as being immigrants. Not all Congolese immigrants can understand because of all the things I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they came here. I came here, in another way, but maybe them, they came here, they were all sad. I live by myself. Maybe they live with the other people. So sometimes it's even hard to find people in your community who can understand you because
Mm-hmm.
they've never been in your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be related to what I wanted to say next is like with even what Papa Ange mentioned, you know, le syndrome de l'homme fort, de la personne forte, like, being supposed to always carry a strong face. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's even truer in our communities for men. Men are not allowed to show any emotions in your families, in your romantic life,
Mm-hmm.
for instance. And I remember when my dad passed, I was 18 or 17. I had a lot of people being mad at me for crying. Like, "Mwana Obadiah did I tell you're not supposed to cry." I'm like, bro, I've never lost someone as close like that to my life. Like, can you just let me be me?
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like I was doing something wrong. And all those traumas, you grow up with them. I mean, you heard them as you grew up in a
Mhm.
Congolese culture, and then I have an event like that happen to me, and that's carry on in my adult life. When I'm in my romantic life, I don't express myself as I should. I
You, don't-
hide certain things. I hide,
you hide things. You hide your what? Your feelings and stuff.
yes, I hide certain emotion because I've been conditioned to believe that, your woman is not supposed to see your downside.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know what you think about it. And something that I really found really so bad was last September. I had a cousin who passed
Mhm.
in Anara. So I went back there for the funerals and stuff. I only saw his dad cried once. I only saw his dad cried once when nobody was looking. But me, I looked at him. But it was still that stigma, like the mom, the woman was allowed to do whatever. He was supposed to be strong. And even when you hear people giving me advice, they always give him advice that, hey, sois fort pour maman. But he's also a parent.
Mhm.
It's like a cultural thing back home where, men are not supposed to express themselves. And I was going through some things with the person I was with, and a few times ago, all those expectations too,
Okay.
about, being a certain way. Sometimes I used to be with someone who pushed me to work harder because I don't know if I can say it like that. She was someone a little bit materialistic.
Okay. So I think I understand what you're talking about. Like, right, from a cultural perspective, right? From a
Uh-huh.
cultural perspective, this is where this is how we have grown, right? This is how we were raised. But if you go back now that we as kids, that we thought that it was normal. Right? It's like, oh yeah, my dad is supposed to do this. Dad says be strong. That the family member are saying this and that. All right. But if you look now with the eyes of a grown person, right? Just go back now, look at those family members, right? Because we are so used to suppress our emotions, men feel more alone than anything else,
Yeah.
right? So now when you go back and how do they solve those problems? They're always at the bar. They're always drinking. And some people is like, okay, because I feel so lonely. And what happened to also a lot of our fathers? You go out, even if you're married, you go outside your marriage. Why? Because the other person who's now married to you mirror what you want to look to, what you want to hear, and she give it back to you.
Yeah.
Right. So you feel like you're alone at home. Outside, they make you feel like, yeah, you're the king. And I'm not just talking about our culture, but even culture here. So our culture reinforce basically when you're our culture, you reinforce your behaviors, right?
Uh-huh.
Because you have nowhere else to go. But when you have the opportunity to compare it to something else, right, or to move to a different environment, and now you're comparing all those responses, and you start to see that certain things are maladaptive. Like as I say, maladaptive. They don't adapt to the new culture. So now, as an adult, it's up to you now to sit down and think about it. Like, okay, I saw this. I saw my dad doing this. I saw my uncles doing this. But at the end, after all those suppressions, I saw them at bars and doing this. Like nothing that they were doing were helping them, their health and their mental health, their physical health, nothing like that. So they have a lot of things because you suppress so much, right? I always say that to my clients, right? Your body is like a receptacle and you have a certain amount of energy, right? So once you suppress it, at some point it's gonna need to go somewhere. But when it goes somewhere, when it comes out of you, right, it's always gonna go out the wrong way. So you want to make sure that if you suppress it, you have different ways to let it go. But you want to be the person controlling it. Because if you let the circumstances control your response, believe me, nothing good's gonna come out of it. All right. So I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty. I didn't know if I formulated the question, but I like what you said. Like, it makes sense.
Okay.
Mhm.
I saw that Mama Janine also had her hand up for quite some time.
Thank you so much, Eve.
No problem, Jonathan.
Thank you, Eve. First of all, a really big thanks from the bottom of my heart. Everything you explain here, from the top to down, I have lived it firsthand. That's why you see I'm so passionate about mental health on young people. I'm just a nurse. I never went to a psychology classes in it, but God found a way to certify me to talk about mental health because I went through it, lived it, and finally overcame it after so many years. And I'm telling you, if you're listening to me here, you are a young man. I know most of you are younger than me. Having Eve explained everything Eve explained, I went through that. Except my story is very very long. Except that he didn't mention panic attacks. Panic attacks. Nobody. I was, I'm a nurse. I'll see in patient chart panic attack. I could not believe until I lived it, and I know many of us here do not. I knew it because I had to live it. I didn't leave it from the textbook because I read it. I saw patient panic attack, but until it happened to me, and that's not the place you want to be. It's horrible, and nobody understand you. Me, I was taken one of the panic attack I had. I was taken. I was just sitting with my husband. Then I jumped. I felt like I was numb on one side of my body. They took me to ER, and the gross, and I was so shocked because even the doctor in ER didn't know I was going through panic attacks, and because my panic attack will never kill a person, but my panic attack will make my blood pressure to go so high, like I land up in ER. Look, my blood pressure was at one time, it was 240 over 100 something, and everybody was rushing, the nurses. I went to the hospital. I was working, so everybody, but none of the doctor, they gave me a stroke. They thought I was having a stroke because I told them I was not feeling my one side. Then, because my blood pressure was so high that I have to go through the whole stroke protocol that I didn't even have. But when I was having my panic attack, when I asked the doctor, I was on my bed, my husband was there, there was all the nurses, it was a bunch of doctors because I was a nurse there. Then all the big doctor came. So then after they realized that I was not having a stroke because anyway, after all that, they gave me the stroke medicine, which is very, very strong medication. So one up to one point during that panic attack, I asked the doctor, "Oh, can you give me the bedside commode, the where you pee? How do you call it? Something, you know?" So then one of the doctors said, "Oh, if she feel like she has to go pee, that means she's not having a stroke." That's where the doctor knew. Can you imagine at Parkland Hospital? So this is not the thing. Is not many people are familiar to mental health. I'm telling you, even the people who study went to school, and I know how to distinguish this because I went through this. So to cut the long story, the long story short, and I'm really really willing to share this shameful story because I don't care. Now I have a husband, I have my children, they're gonna get married soon. So I'm doing this for the sake of protecting people like Jonathan, like this child who is speaking out there. It's their generation. Like 80% of them are going through mental health hell. I call it a hell. Just because we do not, they don't teach you this thing at school. Get me well. Nobody will teach you emotional management. There is no school for that. It's stuff you learn. Like me, I learn after going through that. Now I start taking class so I can really understand and never get that to that point again, and
Mhm.
teach that to my children, and teach that to whoever would like to listen to this. This is an important. This is not the most important session, because without your mental mindfulness, everything, there is no
Mhm.
way you can achieve a truly success if your mental is not stable. If you like, even if you see like you, but mental health, it's even the root. All these young people dying today in the community with cancer, I'm telling you, the situation of fight and flight will put your immunity system down, and you start developing the disease that you are not meant to develop. That's why you
Mhm.
see that today we have in a family. Like me, I had blood pressure. My mom is 88 years, 82, but she has no blood pressure. She has nothing because
Mhm.
but me, the level of stress I left start provoking in my body the disease I wouldn't intend to have. See
Okay.
what? So please, please, please take awareness of this. Yeah, I'm gonna close here. So
Okay.
if you are here, you have a card, insurance card, or whatever. Please start taking care of me, because some people don't go to the hospital because of this. But I know it's hard to find a therapist, but we have one here, Eve Mukanya, who went to school, was certified, and went through experience, so she can please. It's no shame. I share my story just to make sure we have to start having those conversations. So I close here. If you are here listening to me, it's time for us, because I know we have this emotion, like me, for my age, maybe for more than 50 years in my body here, and I know each one of us carry those emotions.
Mhm.
It's time for us to talk, to go to therapist without, it's no shame. So that was it. Sorry for being so long.
No, no. Thank you so much for what you say. As you said, there's a lot of things that happen, especially when you talk about trauma. It's been said that the body keeps the score. So whatever happens to you, the body is gonna keep it, right? So every time that you go through something difficult, your body is always gonna remember. And the fact that you also, when you talk about panic attacks, also, it's the okay. I'm gonna put it this way, all right? When you look at your brain or you look at your mind, basically, your mind doesn't really know what's good or what's bad, right? Your mind just go with what you give it. So your mind goes with the interpretation that you give it. So if you look at a situation, we can look at the one situation, right? For me, it's bad, but for you, you interpret it as good. Your mind and your brain are going to work to help you, or basically, if you look at the circumstance that's for you it's good, your mind is going to work with you on that line. But if for me, I'm looking at that circumstance and I see it as bad, my mind is going to try to protect me, and it's going to put guardrails in my brain, so that every time that I'm exposed to the same um, experience or something reminding me or just that create that response. And the response that you talk about, the panic attacks, is because your brain is always trying to, because it's so traumatic, your brain is trying to remind you that this is the wrong thing, this is bad, right? And it's sending you signal very strongly. Why? Because the brain is trying, really what the brain is doing is trying to save you. But it becomes maladaptive when you let it go for a certain amount of time. So when your brain works in these circumstances, when exposed to the same stimuli, and it gives you the same response, which is a very negative response, even when you're outside of the circumstances, then there's a problem. And that's when you have PTSD, panic attacks, all those type of reaction. Why? Is because you have exposed your brain for a very very long time to the same stimuli, and that's usually because of trauma. And in our community, we have a lot of trauma, not just the trauma from war, but trauma from what we also have lived at home, right? Because when we were back home, it was normal. People was like, okay, slapping your kids or something like. I'm not against correcting your children, but what I'm against is coming